The kind of long-term problem facing the economy, a lot of the problems are stemming from technology. Technology is changing how we work, it's changing kind of the structure of work, it's changing a whole bunch of industries, retail, it's going to change kind of how truck drivers work, much of the delivery infrastructure, and there's this long-term question of whether automation and artificial intelligence will, leave any work for us at all. And there are lots of kind of ideas for how to address these problems, how to address displacement, retraining ideas. People are talking about things like universal basic income. Some of them are far off ideas, and some of them are really expensive. But you could have tried some of these things as experiments or other things in this huge, expensive tax bill, and none of them are kind of addressed in this problem. And in some ways, by sort of distributing a lot of the gains here to wealthy tech companies, it kind of exacerbates some of these problems.
Yeah, and I want to just play devil's advocate on that last point you just made, and that is the fact that this is not a cure for that problem of sort of the growing divide between the big cap tech giants and all the sort of smaller startups. But it does seem like it at least narrows the divide, because you're talking about a lower corporate tax rate of 21%, and you're talking about those big cap tech companies with all their money overseas now getting hit with a 10.5% tax rate on those offshore profits. What more could be done, and wouldn't this still at least have some sort of positive impact for those smaller startups?
Yeah, there's some theory that in the long run, even so after they get this initial repatriation windfall, that in the long run, because the big tech companies are getting taxed at this 10.5% rate for overseas profits, that hurts them because they have set up a very savvy scheme of international profit, putting their profits elsewhere, so they can now have to pay money on that. So that's somewhat good, but it's still going to be far lower than the rate that most of their rivals have to pay here. It's going to give them a lot of cash to buy up a bunch of startups over here. So I mean, you could say it seems like it could, at best it's a wash. Like, you could say it helps them a little bit, but it doesn't fundamentally change the structure of the tech industry. And I think there are ways where it actually increases the power of the big five. And and they were kind of heavily lobbying for this. I think that if they were kind of looking at the long-term image of the tech industry, they might have been better off at pushing some of these ideas that would have stemmed inequality, or just some of the more negative consequences of their technology and how it's changing the economy.
Farhad, how much of your point is that education is infrastructure at this point? And if we really want the lower class and the middle class to get ahead, we have to prepare them for a very different future that these companies that are repatriating cash are creating. So maybe there should be conditions on them bringing back that cash and retraining people, or bringing back that cash and doing something with it that's going to mitigate the impact of Alexa starting to do more than what we tell her around the house.
Yeah, I mean, I think education is a big part of it, and there are lots of plans for kind of retraining and unemployment insurance that would pay for some of this retraining, and there are sort of experiments on things like basic income, or expanding the other ways of kind of paying for some of these dislocations, these displacements that are occurring because of these technologies. So yeah, I mean, I think education is the big one, and there's very little in this that kind of helps that. And there are obviously some provisions that actually make that worse, things having to do with universities and stuff. Yeah. So I think that they would have been better off kind of pushing some of those more progressive ideas.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.